one is squash.
You know the hand, dear. You're right.
Huh?
You're right in there.
I can't find any more fabric. Oh, okay.
Okay.
I think, yeah. Well, that's why we need to organise our fabric better.
Okay. Every year we try and organise our fabric storing area to be better than last year, and I think we were doing pretty well this year. But we always hit a point in the season when it all gets a bit crazy and we start just piling stuff. Well, maybe I start piling stuff up in the wrong place, and then yeah, you pal.
Ow.
Yeah, it's me. It is always my fault. How you doing, folks? So, beautiful day. We only film on beautiful days here. Actually, it's kind of true because we don't have the best of microphones for our recording device, which is my phone, and it is quite a windy sight. Today we've got our weekly volunteer Kirsty helping us in the garden, and Ebba is here still on her internship, and we're just getting them started on a job of planting out some leeks. So we've sown our leeks in trays a couple of months ago. Now it's time to plant them out. So Ebba prepared the beds a few days ago, and now it's just a case of setting out the transplants. We're going to be using landscape fabric just to control the weeds and conserve moisture, and then it's just a case of popping the leeks in the ground and letting them do their thing. These are the last three that's burnt. We're doing.
So
these
you're going to burn those, and then I'll move it along, and then you guys can.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Are you ready?
Let's not set anything away. That's what we've got to
Alright, so Kirsty and Ebba are practicing with the flame weeder that we use for burning the holes in the fabric at the moment, and they're using a template which I made in our first season as a market garden. And this is just a very simple template that has all our vegetable spacings, or our main vegetable spacing, on it, and we use this template moving it up and down the beds as we were just watching, burning holes to then plant through. So keeps all our plantings quite standardized and simple to remember. And so they're just finishing off these leek beds which didn't quite have enough length of fabric, and we had to fit a new piece of fabric and burn some new holes. So that's us getting pretty ready to plant now. What are you up to, Mum?
Oh, I'm sorting through our old pile of cardboard for mulching and moving it to a new spot, and at the same time taking off all the sellotape that's been left on some because it won't decompose in the ground. Now I'm at the bottom of the pile. It's actually all stuck together. It's getting a bit of a job, but there's plenty for you to use for
Right.
your paths and things.
And you can see we had a really hard frost last night, so these have been taken out. Got our runner beans here, which are left over from a planting James did the other day. Bear in mind we're almost in June now, so we're kind of hoping, considering we have to actually harvest for a veg box, that you wouldn't have a hard frost overnight, but we have, and it's actually taken out some of our runner beans. So luckily some seem to be fine. Like for example, you know, this is fine. But then you can see this one's not so bad, but you can see a difference in the leaf, like it's kind of wilted, but not through heat. You know, you can see it's kind of darker, slightly more translucent here. We've had this before and things have perked up. Like we've had this with chard before and it looked very similar and it perked up. So we're going to see how they go, but we're really lucky we've got some left over because we might just have to replace them if they don't seem to get any better. But it does make things really hard because it makes us kind of ask this question of, you know, you can plan really well, work really hard, lots of hours of the day to get everything ready for a veg box where people are putting their faith in you and giving you their money, and you really are out of control of some things. I mean, actually with this, ideally you would maybe throw some fleece over something, but it's also been a cooler spring in general. So we've had this kind of difficult thing where things are in the ground, but they're just not quite as big as we were hoping. And we're really having to ask the question of whether we can start the veg box on the date that we've set, because there's no point harvesting things either when they're not even there or when they're just a bit too small. So we're really weighing up what's best for our customers really, and I think it's best to wait until the veg are ready, because that's when everyone benefits. But it is quite difficult because you really are out of control in these kind of situations. But yeah, we'll work it out. We'll get through it. But it's interesting to note how things are changing.
And that was a serious moment at Tappen. I might put it in black and white. No, joking aside, it is a serious moment. Mulch 2 behind, you know, are loving. They can tolerate the cool, damp conditions and are romping away, growing very well up the trellis. But more tender runner beans, which just set out as transplants just a few days ago, so it's quite a crucial time for them anyway. But we may have potentially sown a bit early, but it's the desire to get an early crop as possible for people to have nice beans that makes us push the boundaries of what is ready to grow at what time of year. Right, so I think Rose you're going to get on with some seed sowing.
Yeah.
Some seed sowing.
I'm going to put some shorts on, I think.
The shorts time again, is it?
It's warm! I've just come into our insanely hot polytunnel to sow some seeds. I mean, a lot of stuff is out in the garden already, but there's just a few things left to sow, and that's mainly because we're trying to stagger our plantings so that we don't get everything ready at once and we can give a good variation of things across the season in our veg boxes. I'm only just sowing our dwarf French beans that we're going to have here in the polytunnel. This is much later than we would normally do it, but it's because we've been trying to push our season earlier this year. And that's meant that we've used the polytunnel a lot to bring on some early crops, and therefore we can't necessarily put the rest of our polytunnel crops in until later, until we've harvested those for the first boxes. I'm just sowing the dwarf French beans now, and they're going to go in place of our beetroot. Sowing some more beetroot. We've got about 3 beds of these so far, and then we're going to do another 2 beds. Chard, we've got 2 beds of this already. We find that it's quite good to stagger a bed. We've got a bed of spinach out there that's going to come out after the first few boxes, and it will mean that as inevitably through the season some of our chard starts to bolt, the next sowing, the next succession will be, you know, younger and therefore better for harvesting later on in the season. So we'll be sowing some of that. Also going to do a little bit more of our super schmelz kohlrabi as a kind of just another crop to have. It's always good to have a few extra things in case something doesn't pull through, just to make sure we always have a good full box for everyone.
Alright folks, it's the afternoon now, we've got a bit of rain coming down. I'm just going to head up into an area of the farm that we have designed as a forest garden. A mixed species, multi-purpose, multifunctional orchard for all sakes. But this is an area where we've been planting many different layers of fruiting shrubs or useful species of plants to mimic the natural architecture of a forest. And at this time of year, it gets very overgrown by some of the weeds. We're trying to establish young trees and shrubs in an area where it really wants to grow into a forest anyway. So we're just kind of slashing back some of the perennial plants and grasses that we don't really want to encourage there. And we're just chopping and dropping, leaving the plants where they fall. And then I think we might get some cardboard and some straw and do a bit of sheet mulching around each tree, just spot mulching them so that we can identify the young trees. And we're removing these weeds because it gives the young trees a better start in life. If they're not competing with grasses, they get more light to grow, they're not strangled out. And we can also show people on our tours of the different species of plants, because we've got a lot of different trees in the forest garden. We're trialing different trees from all around the world, mostly from the northern areas of the world that can tolerate cold climate like Scotland. I've already trimmed a pathway through. It should look a bit different by the time me and the team have cut everything back. Alright, so we've cut back all the grasses and roseberry, willow herb, any of the vegetation that we don't really want to promote here in the forest garden. We've identified the pathways, we've cut around each tree or shrub or clump of herbs just to try and give them a better chance at surviving. And now we're going to do a bit of spot mulching. So we're going to do sheet mulching around the smaller trees that might benefit from having the reduction of weed pressure. And to do that, we're going to layer up some cardboard that we've had in a pile, and we're going to tile the cardboard around each tree or shrub, and then we're going to give it a layer of this kind of old grass that we cut in the West Field a few weeks back. Alright, I'm up in the top of the West Field that we're quickly calling the hay field, because we're going to leave this field to grow some hay. And we cut back quite a few years of growth from this field a wee while ago, just to try and encourage a lot more light to get through and grow a better crop of hay. And so we've got a few piles of hay, but we've had such bad weather, such wet weather recently, that the hay's not really had enough time to dry, so we're using it as mulch now. And you can see the tree rows, our silver pasture system here, behind me where we've mulched all the tree rows with hay to suppress the grass growth again. And so yeah, I'm just come up with the BCS and the trailer and gonna get the last lot of this hay pile into the trailer and take it over to Ebba in the forest garden where we're mulching the fruit trees there. So Ebba's already been putting the cardboard around each tree. We've got black currants and aronia berry here. So she's just laying it around the tree so that it suppresses the grasses by getting rid of the light and stopping them from growing. And also this will be food for the worms and microbes in the soil, so should benefit the plants by giving them a boost of fertility. Alright folks, that's pretty much the end of the day here at Tappendale Farm. So a great day with some great help from our volunteers Ebba and Kirsty. We got quite a lot done in the garden. They both planted out 2 beds of leeks, and Rosa did a mammoth seed sowing session in the polytunnel, getting the next succession of seeds ready to go into the market garden. This afternoon we've all been here in the forest garden doing a bit of chop and drop, bit of sheet mulching, spot mulching around the trees which need that extra sort of support to compete with the grass and the weeds. And yeah, it's looking good. It's amazing what a bit of muscle work can do with some dedicated people. As always, if you like what you saw, please hit subscribe. Give the video a like and tell your friends. Why don't you share it to a few of your social media platforms for us. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.